Imagine that White House policy is like a huge pendulum. Well, this week it swung back toward Ukraine again. After the UN General Assembly and his meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, Donald Trump called Russia a paper tiger, praised Ukrainian resistance, and even suggested that everything Moscow has seized could still be taken back. They say that while Trump was in such a good mood, Zelensky hurried to ask him for missiles as well, like tomahawks, so that both Putin and his inner circle would remember their bunkers. As always, the TSN team has been following all the main events of the week together with you. And now, let's recall all the most important things, day by day.
Putin accused the West of disrupting nuclear agreements, but Trump is proposing nuclear arms limitations. The last treaty on the reduction of strategic offensive arms, which limits the number of both Russian and American nuclear warheads and missiles, is set to expire in February next year. At the moment, negotiations on its extension have not yet begun, so Putin is proposing to adhere to the limitations for a year, provided, of course, that the United States takes a similar step in response. In Zaporizhzhia, emergency rescue operations have been completed after the Russians dropped 10 guided aerial bombs on the city this morning. There are 3 dead and 2 wounded in the city. Fortunately, one of the dropped bombs did not detonate. The Russians also continue their hunt for civilians. In the Kharkiv region, in the village of Novomykolaivka, a drone struck a civilian car. 2 men were injured. In the Sumy region, in the Shalhinska community, a Russian FPV drone also hit a civilian vehicle. The driver was injured. And in the Donetsk region, the enemy attacked Kostiantynivka and Yampil. There, 4 people were killed and 8 townspeople were wounded. A life sentence was handed down to the person found guilty of the high-profile murder of a schoolboy on the Kyiv funicular. Artem Kosov, an officer of the State Security Administration, admitted to killing Maxim Meterukin, although he insisted it was manslaughter. He was intoxicated when an argument broke out between him and the boy. Kosov pushed the teenager against the glass, which severed his artery. The trial was constantly delayed, and the parents of the deceased feared that the perpetrator would escape punishment. However, Prosecutor General Ruslan Kravchenko personally took on the prosecution. And today Kosov was convicted. Life imprisonment. Tomorrow, Maxim Meterukin would have turned 18. Tens of thousands of Hasidic Jews have traditionally gathered in Uman, Cherkasy region to celebrate the new year according to the Jewish calendar. It will be the year 5786 by their calendar. It begins today after sunset. Summer is bidding us farewell. Soon there will be rain and a sharp drop in temperature. Today and tomorrow we can expect a farewell 25 to 27 degrees Celsius and mostly dry weather, but starting Wednesday, according to meteorologists, autumn coolness will arrive. Short-term rains will begin first in the west, and by Thursday will move into the northern and eastern regions as well. Friday and the weekend promise to be dry, but don't expect any warmth. There may even be frosts at night.
The Russians attacked Zaporizhzhia with Shaheds. At least 1 person was killed and 12 were injured. And at night, the city shook from the explosions of high-explosive aerial bombs. One hit a private house. The 49-year-old owner hid in the basement, but it didn't save him. The man's body was found under the rubble. Volodymyr Zelensky flew to New York. On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, he has already met, in particular, with the President of Kazakhstan and the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, and with Trump's Special Representative, Keith Kellogg. And during their meeting, the President invited Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew to Kyiv. The debris from the downed drones rained down right onto the streets of Moscow. In addition to the capital, UAVs also visited a number of Russian regions, resulting in a series of explosions being heard and the closure of many airports. In particular, flying vehicles were recorded in Ryazan, Saratov, Engels, and Kazan. Tatyana Sakiyan, who was rushed into labor after a Shahed drone struck her home in the capital, died in the hospital. On September 8th, a Russian drone hit a high-rise building in the Sviatoshinsky district. Tatyana and her husband Vadim suffered burns on 80% of their bodies. At that time, doctors were able to save the baby by performing a cesarean section. The child's father is still fighting for his life. France, following a number of other countries, has announced its recognition of the Palestinian state. President Macron announced this from the podium of the UN General Assembly. 2 flags, the Palestinian and the Israeli, appeared on the Eiffel Tower as a gesture of peaceful initiative in the ongoing conflict. In addition to France, Belgium and Luxembourg have also joined the countries that have recognized Palestine. Previously, among others, Australia, the United Kingdom, Portugal and Canada had done the same. The largest airport in northern Europe, Kastrup in Copenhagen, was forced to suspend all flights for several hours due to unidentified drones. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen did not rule out that Russia might be behind this. An unidentified drone was also spotted over the airport in the Norwegian capital, Oslo. Because of this, the airspace also had to be closed. They were building a house for the commander, even though they were supposed to be on duty. DBR investigators have detained the commander of a military unit in Rivne. They say he forced his subordinates to build him a house in the neighboring Lviv region. He involved 3 servicemen in the work, but according to the documents, they were listed as being in the unit, receiving salaries and even honorary certificates. The officer was served with a notice of suspicion and taken into custody. A mine drifting near the shore was discovered by naval servicemen in the Black Sea, in the Odesa region. The ammunition was torn from its anchor by the waves. In open waters, the anti-ship mine posed a threat to vessels, and if it approached the shore, to people as well, so it was detonated right in the water. 85 new items have been added. The Ministry of Health has expanded the list of available medicines. Now the list includes 705 drugs and directions. They have added in particular medications for pregnant women and new mothers, drugs for thyroid diseases, glaucoma, and also for childhood illnesses. The list of medicines that can be obtained free of charge or with partial payment is available on the ministry's website.
2 people have been killed and 15 injured today in Zaporizhzhia. The enemy struck the region nearly 700 times. Almost 500 drones were launched, and artillery, missiles, and aviation were also used.
The enemy has upgraded its equipment. Secondly, the enemy, for example, on the night from Sunday to Monday, carried out a massive shelling, the likes of which had not happened before.
Another powerful explosion in Russia. The General Staff confirmed a strike in Bashkiria, at the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat oil refinery. Black smoke is rising over the facility, and Krasnodar Krai is also suffering. There, the airport's operations were suspended. Drones struck the office of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which is responsible for shipping Russian oil to the Shadow Fleet. Zaluzhny on the Kursk operation. The former commander-in-chief spoke for the first time about the actions of his successor, Syrsky. He says the cost of such an offensive was too high. He also recalled his own unsuccessful offensive in 2023. He says that the front is now at a positional deadlock. The situation is similar to the trench warfare of World War I. If you want security, arm yourself. International law doesn't work unless your influential friends truly support you. With these words, Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the UN General Assembly, and the President of Ukraine also noted that it's only a matter of time before drones start fighting against drones. He announced that Ukraine knows how to produce them and invited anyone interested to cooperate.
We are ready to make our modern weapons your modern security, your weapons. We have decided to open up arms exports.
A scandal over the honey cake. An argument erupted online after a publication in the New York Times. There, the recipe for honey cake was called a Russian cake. People were outraged, writing that honey cake is popular in Ukraine, the Baltic countries, and a number of other states. Some commenters wrote that the cake could only be called Russian if it had blood or Novichok poison added to it. Hundreds of thousands evacuated and fatalities. Super Typhoon Ragasa is gaining strength. The disaster is raging in Taiwan. So far, 17 deaths have been reported, and the number of missing persons has reached 100. The disaster brought heavy rains and strong winds. Wind speeds at the epicenter reach hundreds of kilometers per hour.
5 people have been killed and 17 injured in Donetsk region. Russian war criminals dropped 10 aerial bombs weighing from 250 kilograms to 1 ton, including on residential areas of Kostiantinivka. 4 civilians were killed there.
We don't know what to do. The roof was blown off. The windows were shattered. The car was damaged.
Ukrainian intelligence special forces from the primary unit took down 2 enemy AN-26 aircraft and coastal radar stations. At the same time, in the Zaporizhzhia region, Ukrainian defense forces report shooting down a Russian Su-34 bomber that was dropping bombs on the area. Volodymyr Zelensky has admitted that he may not run for president if the war ends. In an interview with Axios, the president stated that he is ready to leave office if the fighting stops. He said that he has already informed Donald Trump about this. A drone attack on Russia's Kuban region may have hit a plant producing phosphorus and nitrogen compounds. And the day before, also in the Krasnodar region, sea drones attacked the port of Tuapse, with an explosion occurring at the loading pier of the local plant. Russian sabotage groups continue to break through into Kupiansk. The enemy also managed to advance in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Fierce battles continue for the forest near the village of Filia. The hottest fronts are the Lyman, Novopavlivka and Pokrovsk directions. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. A Paris court found him partially guilty in the so-called Libyan case. According to the case, the politician, through his aides, received tens of millions of euros for his election campaign from then Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. A woman could face up to 8 years in prison for leaving her infant alone in a locked apartment for 4 days. The incident occurred in Kyiv in January, after which the child fell into a coma and is still under medical supervision. The suspect is 17 years old and may also be deprived of parental rights.
Nuclear safety is under threat. A Russian drone crashed near the South Ukrainian nuclear power plant. The drone was destroyed 800 meters from the station's fence. The debris damaged metal structures, cars, and also disabled a regional power line. The IAEA has already called the incident dangerous for nuclear safety, and the agency's Director General Rafael Grossi expressed his concern about the situation. A large blaze in the Smolensk region. The fuel crisis in Russia is deepening even without the help of friendly drones. There was a fire on the railway. A freight train carrying gasoline derailed. First, it collided with a truck that had driven onto the crossing. The locomotive and 18 cars overturned. 3 fire trains were dispatched to extinguish the blaze. Trump continues to put pressure on Russia. At a meeting in the White House with the president of Turkey, he explained why he calls Russia a colossus with feet of clay. Despite heavy bombardments and a huge army, Russia has not achieved any significant successes in Ukraine after years of war. To speed up the end of the war, Trump urged the Turkish leader to stop buying Russian oil products. Their economy is going to hell. They are bombing everything indiscriminately and capturing very little territory, if any at all. Poland has opened its border with Belarus and is urging its citizens to return immediately. This is due to rising tensions, military events in the region, and cases of arbitrary arrests of Polish citizens in Belarus. Border crossing points were closed as of September 12th due to the Russian-Belarusian military exercises Zapad 2025. A Kremlin warship is hiding in Danish waters. It was spotted by journalists from a helicopter. The landing ship Alexander Shabalin was spotted 12 kilometers off the coast of the Danish island of Langeland. To avoid detection, the crew turned off the tracking system. Journalists suggest that it could be serving as a base for drones, and at the Center for Countering Disinformation of the National Security and Defense Council, they explain that in this way, Moscow is trying to spread the idea among Europeans that supporting Ukraine harms the EU, as well as to boost the standing of pro-Russian politicians. The first frosts have arrived in Ukraine. In Vinnytsia region, thermometers dropped to -2 degrees. The plants were covered with frost. And in Volyn, raspberry and blueberry plantations were damaged by the cold. It's all due to a cold atmospheric front, followed by an invasion of Arctic air.
Next week, in particular, we'll find out how the elections in Moldova will end, and whether the pro-Russian forces will manage to pull off a painful and dangerous comeback for Ukraine, and how long this Trump pendulum will remain on our side. We will keep tracking everything and keep you informed. My name is Sviatoslav Hrinchuk, and thank you for staying with TSN.